Good morning, Carroll County. This is Brian DiLeonardo, your state's attorney, with this week's State's Attorney's Report. As you know, if you've listened to these programs, a constant theme is dealing with our drug challenges, dealing with our overdoses, because it really is the driver for everything. It's the driver for our crime. It's the driver for a drain on resources when it comes to our first responders. And ultimately, we have families that are losing family members as a result of drug addiction. And so there's really not a higher priority for me. And it is something that we've constantly looked at ways to evaluate. What can we do? How can we do it better? We've done a lot of intervention when it comes to drug overdoses, but I'm really excited with a very new initiative that we're doing, which is a major overdose initiative. And with me to discuss it this morning is two of the people that are in the office that really make this happen. Our drug treatment education liaison, Tim Weber, and investigator Alan Albaugh. So good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just to set the stage, and then I'm going to really, ask both of you, but essentially we have a major offender unit where we target our worst offenders in the community for prosecution. And we do that because we know there's a few people that really cause the majority of the crime. So taking that philosophy, when one is applied to overdoses and say, is there certain people that are really driving our overdoses? And so one of the things you have to do is really marshal data and analyze that data. And so first of all, I want to go to our investigator, Alan Albaugh. First of all, Alan, tell us a little bit about your background prior to coming to the state's attorney's office.
I was with the Maryland State Police for a little over 26 years as a sworn police officer. I retired from the Maryland State Police as a sergeant. The bulk of my time with Maryland State Police, I was a background investigator on folks that were purchasing firearms. So I had quite a bit of knowledge on how to use different databases and researching someone's background. After I retired from Maryland State Police, I went back as a civilian employee doing time at the Maryland Gun Center. Again, this time not dealing so much with people buying firearms, but in folks who've been arrested with firearms. As you know, a lot of times drugs and guns kind of go together. And so I worked there for about 2.5 years at the Maryland Gun Center, which is a 24/7 call center for folks who get arrested with the firearms. After my 2.5 years there, then a position opened up in the Carroll County State's Attorney's Office, and I applied for a position there, and I was fortunate enough to get hired.
Yeah, and I knew Alan back in my days in the Attorney General's office and had worked with him, and I was really excited to get him into the office because I knew his experience with working with data, working with information, and tracking that. So, Alan, can you tell us, as part of this major overdose initiative, what your role is?
Basically, I just consider myself an information gatherer. I look at police reports. I've got a rapport with the local police department, all the agencies, and they will forward to me their reports because, as we know now, our first responders go to these overdoses. They generate reports. I then get those reports, and I glean information from these reports, not just the victim of the overdose, but also associates who were also present with these overdoses. Also look at the addresses of where these overdoses are occurring. And I gather this information and I put into a database that I've created myself. And I try to look at different trends, different people. For example, if I see a person who has overdosed multiple times, I then forward that information to Tim Weber, who then reaches out to that person to try to get that person into some sort of treatment to prevent that person, hopefully, from having a fatal overdose. That's our ultimate goal is to prevent these deaths that's occurring here in the county. And also, not only just a treatment side, but I also try to take this information, if I can connect the dots, so to speak, somewhat, to a possible person who may be supplying this individuals that are ODing, or an address that keeps popping up in these reports. I will then take that information and forward it to appropriate law enforcement officials for possible follow-up. Maybe they can develop something actionable out of that information.
And so essentially, one of the things we've tried to do is we do that when it comes to our major offender unit, is applying that to the major overdose initiative, essentially saying, look, we do this when it comes to identifying offenders. If we can figure out who is really driving the overdoses, then we can maybe start, turning the corner on that. So let me ask you, Tim, with the information you get, what have you been able to glean from that?
Well, one of the things with Alan is just meticulous in the way he tracks this. And so by seeing that there's multiple overdoses, then we go back and look and see if they have a court date coming up, whether it be traffic, violation of probation, and we also see if they're on probation, and then also having the address itself. So it's kind of 3 areas we can do. And then if I know they have a court date and they've overdosed 3 times, I can actually go up and kind of meet them in the courthouse and talk to them and just offer them help. You know, they're not in trouble for anything at this point, but we're just trying to prevent the fatal overdoses.
So what do the numbers look like? I mean, number of overdoses compared to, have we been able to identify a certain number of people that are really responsible for a lot of the overdoses?
Yeah, with Alan's the way he keeps track of it, we've been able to determine in the last 6 months of 2016 that 17 individuals were responsible for 44 of our overdoses. So if that's mirrored in the first 6 months, and it's similar to that, we could have 32, 34 people that are accounting for almost 100 of the overdoses that we're having, the non-fatal overdoses.
And again, that's kind of one of the things where you have this person who's continuing to overdose, and if we can at least recognize that, it gives us some ability to try to coordinate. I know with some of that information, what have you done? You talked about contacting and going to court, but this is also information that we can share with, for example, their probation agents, right?
Exactly. One of the things, and it's already, I've been over twice to the probation department to talk about an individual. One of them I was actually able to meet with, that this particular person had 2 overdoses, and he was at first not receptive to it, but a couple of days later, just because the seed was kind of planted and we had that conversation, he's actually reached out, and we're in the process now of getting him to some kind of treatment to hopefully prevent another overdose.
And Alan, how long have you been able to gather this information to really start
Initially, when I came into the office, I was getting information, but basically they were just numbers. It were statistics. But behind each of these numbers is an individual. And so that's why I decided to start my own database of capturing the individual, to reach out to the individual. So I started to meticulously capture this information starting July 1st of 2016. Again, when I say I check for overdose, not just for Carroll County, we can have a person OD one time here in Carroll County, but when I get to checking into the person's background a little bit, I can see what this person has overdosed: Harford County, Balmer City. So while here it may look like it's one overdose, but in reality he's had 5 or 6 overdoses. Mm-hmm. And that's information that I can then take to Mr. Weber here, and then he can reach out to the person and say, hey, this isn't a one-time thing, this is a multiple situation here. And sometimes the person themselves is not receptive, but because I also capture who was present at the overdose, for example, sometimes a family member, a girlfriend, boyfriend, fiance, husband, wife, he can sometimes reach out to that person, and that person is receptive, and between the two of them working, they can in turn have that person seek treatment a little bit easier.
And just to put a finer point on this, sometimes people will say, well, why should we worry about them committing overdoses? That's their choice. They choose to do it. And I think, we do a lot of work with Chief Meekins in Hampstead, and he's really been proactive in working with us on this issue. And I think it's noticeable. He just recently sent a letter out to a lot of the elected officials, including myself, indicating that his officers have gone so far as calling from the scene to get Tim involved, and when we're dealing with overdoses and working with Alan. And what they saw in 2016 was actually a 7% decrease in assaults and a 33% decrease in burglaries and thefts. And he really attributes to the fact that half of the people that have been referred or identified are still in treatment, and realize that when someone has a $300 a day heroin habit, they're not working somewhere making $300 a day. And so he really attributes it in the town of Hampstead that part of this historic low is as a result of the fact that we are proactively identifying those that are using, to get them not only to save themselves, but to stop creating new victims of crime. And so, when people ask, why should they care? Well, because they could be living in the house that person kicks in the front door and steals their stuff the next time. And that's what we don't want to have happen. So Again, I want to thank both of you for not only your hard work in what you're doing. I think this is really an innovative program that we're trying. And again, that's where we look at. We'll keep trying solutions until we can get this challenge beaten. So thank you, Tim. Thank you, Alan, for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
For all of you out there, again, thank you for all your continued support. We are very appreciative of your support of public safety in this county, and we will continue to work as diligently as we can to keep Carroll County with the lowest crime rate. Thank you.